I thought I knew what love looked like, but what I found in the Philippines was something else. 2 days, that's all it took for her to tell me she was pregnant. I wanted to believe her. I needed to believe her. Now, she's asking for $1,000 a month, and I'm sitting here wondering, what part of this was ever real? My name is Dennis Ward. I'm 63 years old, recently divorced, and I just made the biggest mistake of my life. This is my confession. The humidity hit me like a wall when I stepped off that plane in Manila. After 35 years delivering mail in Missouri and a divorce that left me hollow, I needed something different. The Philippines seemed like a good place to disappear for a while. My buddy Carl had been telling me stories for years about how friendly the people were, especially to American men our age. I thought he was exaggerating. I wasn't prepared for Angela's city. Walking into that sports bar on Fields Avenue, I felt like a different person. The music was loud, the lights were dim, and everywhere I looked, young women smiled at me. Really smiled. Not the polite nods I'd gotten used to back home, but genuine warmth. "Hello, sir. Welcome to Philippines," they'd say, touching my arm, asking where I was from. After months of eating dinner alone and watching Netflix until I fell asleep, this attention felt like sunlight after years of winter. That's when I saw Charmaine. She was working a promotional shift, wearing a tight red dress and carrying a tray of beer samples. But she wasn't like the others who rushed over immediately. She caught my eye from across the room and smiled, not the practiced smile of someone working, but something softer, more real. When she finally approached my table, she moved slowly, almost shyly. "You look lonely," she said, setting down a San Miguel light without me asking. Her English was careful but clear. "First time in Angeles?" "First time in the Philippines," I admitted. Still figuring it all out. She laughed, not the high-pitched giggle I'd heard from the other girls, but something genuine. "Don't worry, I help you figure out." She sat down across from me, uninvited but welcome. "What's your name?" "Dennis. Dennis Ward. I'm Charmaine." She extended her hand, and when I shook it, she held on a moment longer than necessary. "You seem like good man, Dennis. Different from other tourists." I should have asked what she meant by that. I should have wondered why a 26-year-old woman would be interested in a 63-year-old retired postal worker. But sitting there, feeling her fingers warm against mine, I didn't want to question anything. For the first time in years, someone was choosing to spend time with me, not because they had to, not out of obligation, but because they wanted to. We talked for hours. She told me about growing up in a small province, about moving to Angeles for work, about sending money home to her family. I told her about Missouri, about my job, about how quiet my house had become after the divorce. She listened, really listened, nodding and asking questions, like my stories actually mattered. "Your wife, she was lucky woman," Charmaine said when I mentioned the divorce. "But maybe now you find someone who appreciate you better." The bar was closing when she leaned closer and whispered, "You want me to come with you tonight?" I finish work now. Walking back to my hotel with her small hand in mine, I felt something I hadn't felt in decades. Hope, maybe even joy. This beautiful young woman had chosen me over all the younger, richer guys in that bar. She had to see something in me that even I had forgotten was there. That first night together was tender in ways I hadn't expected. She wasn't performing or rushing through motions like I'd imagined these encounters would be. She touched my face, looked into my eyes, whispered my name like it meant something. When we were done, she didn't grab her clothes and leave. She curled up against my chest and talked about her dreams, her fears, her hopes for the future. "I never feel like this before, Dennis," she said, tracing circles on my chest with her finger. "Usually, with men here, is just business. But you different. You make me feel special." I believed her. God help me, I believed every word. The next morning she stayed for breakfast. We walked around the city together, her arm linked through mine like we were a real couple. She showed me local places, introduced me to street vendors, translated conversations. Other Filipino men looked at us with what seemed like approval, nodding respectfully. I felt proud walking with her, proud and grateful, and more alive than I'd been in years. "Dennis," she said, as we sat sharing Halo that afternoon, "I want you to know I don't do this often. Stay with men like this. But you make me feel safe, like I can be myself." That second night was even better than the first. Afterwards, as we lay in the dark, she rested her head on my shoulder and spoke so quietly I almost didn't hear her. Dennis, I feel different today. Different how? She was quiet for a long moment. In my body. Something changed, maybe because we connect so deep. She looked up at me, her eyes reflecting the city lights coming through the window. I think maybe I'm pregnant. The room went completely still. My heart started pounding so hard I was sure she could hear it. Are you serious? She nodded, looking scared and vulnerable. I know is crazy. Only 2 days, but I feel it inside me. Different. She touched her stomach. I never feel like this before with other men. Maybe because this time is real love, not just business. I should have been terrified. I should have asked questions, demanded proof, insisted it was too soon to know anything. Instead, I felt something I didn't expect, pride. Deep, unexpected pride. This young, beautiful woman was carrying my child. After years of feeling invisible, unwanted, discarded, I had created life again. I was needed again. I mattered again. Are you scared? I asked. Little bit, she admitted. But if you're with me, I think everything will be okay. I pulled her closer. Of course I'll be with you. We'll figure this out together. She smiled and kissed my chest. I know you're a good man, Dennis. I feel it from first moment I see you. That night, I barely slept. I lay there staring at the ceiling, imagining a future I'd never dared to consider. Maybe I'd move to the Philippines. Maybe she'd come to America. Maybe we'd raise our child somewhere in between. I was 63, but I felt like my life was just beginning. The next morning, everything felt different. More serious, more real. Over breakfast, Charmaine was quieter, more thoughtful. Dennis, if I'm really pregnant, I cannot work anymore at bar. Cannot do promotional jobs. Is not safe for baby. Of course not, I agreed immediately. You shouldn't be in that environment anyway. She nodded, looking relieved. But I still need to pay for food, for apartment, for medicine. My tita, she say pregnant woman needs special vitamins, special food. Very expensive here in Philippines. Without thinking, I reached for my wallet. How much do you need? She shook her head quickly. No, Dennis, I don't want to ask for money, is not right. It's our baby, I said, pressing 5,000 pesos into her hand. Let me take care of you both. The gratitude in her eyes made my chest swell. This was what being a man was supposed to feel like. Providing, protecting, being needed. Over the next 5 days, I canceled my planned trip to Boracay. Why would I want to be anywhere else when I had found everything I was looking for right here? Charmaine introduced me to her cousin Maria and her aunt, her tita, who welcomed me with warmth and smiles. They spoke mostly in Tagalog when I was around, occasionally glancing at me with expressions I couldn't quite read. But Charmaine would always translate. They say you seem like very good man, she'd tell me. They happy I find someone who treat me with respect. I started giving Charmaine money regularly. Not large amounts, a few thousand pesos here and there for groceries, vitamins, a doctor's appointment to confirm the pregnancy. She always protested at first, saying she didn't want to be burdened, but I insisted. This was my responsibility now, my chance to do things right. But something was shifting. Small things at first. She'd check her phone more often during our conversations. Her kisses became quicker, more perfunctory. She started arriving at our meetings a little later each time, always with apologetic explanations about family obligations or errands. The pregnancy is making me very tired, she'd say when I asked if everything was okay. And little bit emotional, is normal. I wanted to believe that. I needed to believe that. My last night in Angeles, she seemed distant, distracted. We were having dinner at a nice restaurant, my treat, of course, when she reached across the table and took my hand. Dennis, I've been thinking. If I really have your baby, everything changed for me. I cannot work, cannot take care of myself like before. I depend on you completely. I want you to depend on me, I said, squeezing her hand. That's what couples do. They take care of each other. She nodded but didn't look convinced. In Philippines, is different than America. Family here, they expect man to support woman when she pregnant, especially American man. They think all Americans very rich. I laughed. I'm not rich, Charmaine. I'm just a retired postal worker with a small pension. Her expression grew serious. But you have more than most people here. Much more. The flight back to Missouri felt endless. I stared out the window, already missing Charmaine, already planning my return. I'd given her my number, my email, my Facebook. We'd stay in touch daily until I could come back or bring her to America. This was just the beginning. For the first week, everything seemed normal. We texted constantly. She sent pictures of herself, told me she missed me, asked about my day. I sent money for a proper ultrasound at a better clinic. She thanked me profusely, saying she was so grateful to have found a man like me. Then the message came that changed everything. Dennis, I've been to doctor today. Baby is growing good, but I need to be very careful now. Doctors say I need special medicine, special food, cannot stress about money. My tita think maybe you can send $1,000 every month until baby comes? She say is normal for American father to do this. She say is only fair for you to take care of us properly. I stared at my phone screen for 20 minutes, reading the message over and over. $1,000 a month. That was nearly half my pension. I'd have to dip into savings, cut back on everything. But looking at the blurry ultrasound photo she'd sent, just a gray blob on a dark background, no identifying information visible, I felt that familiar surge of pride and responsibility. This was my child. My responsibility. If Charmaine needed help, I had to provide it. Of course, I texted back. I'll take care of both of you. You don't need to worry about money. Her response came immediately. Thank you, Dennis. I love you so much. Baby is so lucky to have you as father. I sent the money that same day through a remittance center, feeling proud and protective and needed. But as I walked home from the Western Union office, a small voice in the back of my mind started whispering questions I didn't want to hear. The next few weeks were confusing. Charmaine's messages became shorter, less frequent. When I called, she often didn't answer, texting later with apologies about being at the doctor or resting. The warm, intimate conversations we'd had in person were replaced by brief updates about doctor appointments and requests for specific amounts of money for various pregnancy-related expenses. Dennis, need $300 for special vitamins doctor prescribe. Tita say I need to eat more expensive food now. Need $200 for grocery. Doctor want to do special test. Very expensive. Need $150. Each time I sent the money, her gratitude felt more automatic, less personal. The woman who had traced circles on my chest and whispered my name like it meant something was being replaced by someone more businesslike, more distant. My daughter Carly called one afternoon while I was staring at my dwindling bank balance. Dad, are you okay? You sound different lately. I'm fine, I lied. Just adjusting to retirement. Mom said you went to the Philippines. How was that? I almost told her. Almost explained about Charmaine, about the baby, about how I'd found love again in the most unexpected place. But something held me back. Maybe it was the growing doubt in my chest. Maybe it was the shame I was trying not to acknowledge. It was educational, I said finally. 3 months after returning from Angeles, I got the call that shattered everything remaining of my denial. Dennis? Charmaine's voice sounded different. Colder. I need to tell you something. My heart clenched. What's wrong? Is the baby okay? There was a long pause. I lost the baby. The world tilted. What? When? How? Last week. Miscarriage. Doctors say sometimes happens early in pregnancy. Her voice was flat, emotionless, matter of fact, very sad. I waited for her to cry. I waited for her to need comfort, to ask me to come back, to grieve with her. Instead, there was only silence. Charmaine, I'm so sorry. Are you okay? Do you need me to come back? No need, she said quickly. But Dennis, I still need help. Miscarriage is very expensive here. Hospital bills, medicine, recovery time. I cannot work for many weeks. Tita say you should still send money for few more months to help me recover properly. Something cold settled in my stomach. How much? Same amount. $1,000 for 3 more months. Then everything back to normal. I hung up the phone and sat in my kitchen for 2 hours, staring at nothing. Where was the grief? Where were the tears? Where was the woman who had whispered, I love you, and traced circles on my chest? The woman I'd fallen for would have been devastated. She would have needed me. This stranger on the phone was simply adjusting the terms of our arrangement. But I sent the money anyway, because what if I was wrong? What if she was just processing grief differently? What if cultural differences explained her reaction? What if she really needed help, and I was being selfish and suspicious? The money transfer went through on a Thursday. By Saturday, Charmaine had stopped responding to my messages entirely. I called the number she'd given me. Disconnected. I tried Facebook. Account deleted. I searched for her cousin Maria, her tita, anyone who might know how to reach her. Nothing. It was like she had never existed. That's when I started doing the math I should have done months earlier. The timeline that never quite made sense. The ultrasound with no identifying information. The too quick pregnancy announcement. The convenient miscarriage right when I was starting to ask questions. The systematic requests for money that had replaced genuine affection. I'd been played. Completely, thoroughly, expertly played. Sitting at my kitchen table with bank statements spread out in front of me, I calculated the damage. Nearly $4,000 in 3 months. Money I'd saved for years, sent to a stranger who had performed love just long enough to extract what she needed. But the money wasn't even the worst part. The worst part was the hollow feeling in my chest where hope used to live. The realization that every moment I'd treasured, every whispered endearment, every gentle touch, had been a performance. The woman I'd fallen in love with had never existed at all. Months passed. I stopped talking about the Philippines to anyone. When friends asked about my trip, I gave vague answers about nice beaches and friendly people. I deleted the photos from my phone, unfriended the few Filipino contacts I'd made, tried to pretend those 2 weeks had never happened. But late at night, lying in the same bed where I'd dreamed of bringing Charmaine to America, the questions wouldn't stop coming. Had any of it been real? Had she felt anything for me at all, even briefly? Or had she sized me up as an easy mark from the moment I walked into that bar, another lonely American looking for something he'd never find? Carly visited for Thanksgiving. She found me drinking alone at 2 p.m., staring at old episodes of a show I wasn't really watching. "Dad, what's going on? You're different, sadder." "Just getting old," I said, not meeting her eyes. "Is this about your trip? Did something happen in the Philippines?" I almost told her everything. Almost explained how I'd thought I'd found love and purpose and meaning, only to discover I'd been funding someone else's life while they performed affection for my benefit. But what would be the point? She'd either pity me or think I was pathetic. Maybe both. "Nothing happened," I said. "Just learned some things about myself." "What kind of things?" I took another sip of beer and stared at the TV. "That I'm more desperate than I thought, and that makes me dangerous. To myself. The truth is, I don't know if it was all a lie. Maybe Charmaine did like me, at least a little, in those first 2 days. Maybe the connection I felt was partly real, partly wishful thinking, and partly performance. Maybe she convinced herself she was pregnant because she wanted to believe it too. Maybe the miscarriage actually happened. But it doesn't matter anymore. What matters is that I lost myself chasing something that couldn't exist. A fantasy of being young again, desired again, needed again. I paid $4,000 for 2 weeks of feeling like I mattered to someone. In the end, that's all it was. A transaction disguised as romance. I'm not angry at Charmaine anymore. I understand now that she was working, and I was a customer who convinced himself he was something more. The anger I feel is directed at the mirror. At the 63-year-old man who was so hungry for affection that he ignored every red flag, rationalized every inconsistency, and sent money to a stranger because she'd made him feel special for 48 hours. Some nights, I still wonder where she is. If she's moved on to the next lonely tourist, perfecting her performance, adding new details to make it more believable. I wonder if she thinks about me at all, or if I was just another deposit in her account forgotten as soon as the money cleared. I'll never know. And maybe that's for the best. What I do know is this. I went to the Philippines looking for love and found a mirror instead. A reflection of how desperate I'd become, how willing I was to buy affection, how easily I could convince myself that need was the same thing as connection. If you're reading this and seeing yourself in my story, stop. Put down your phone. Don't send that money. Don't book that return flight. Don't make my mistake. Because the love you think you found isn't love at all. It's just someone who's very good at giving you what you think you want, until they've gotten what they actually need. The saddest part isn't that Charmaine lied to me. The saddest part is how easily I lied to myself, and how long it took me to admit that the man in the mirror was the only one I could really blame. I'm still here in Missouri, still eating dinner alone, still watching Netflix until I fall asleep. But now I know the difference between loneliness and desperation. Now I know that buying someone's time isn't the same as earning their affection. And now I know that the only person who can make me feel like I matter is me. It took $4,000 and a broken heart to learn that lesson. I'm sharing this story so maybe it won't cost you the same.